Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way. Can't do it. Well, a little bit. Let me give you a complaint. There's too much news today. Too much. I'm overwhelmed in the news. There's a lot of news out there. That's what took me a little extra time today. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We had technical difficulties, of course. The windows on my screen couldn't handle the amount of stories we had, so I had to rejig everything because the computer just kept crashing and I could not go live due to crashing computers. But you all forgive me. I know it. I know it. Behold my hands and my feet, that is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit hath not flesh and bones. Yes, see me have, as ye see me have. Thank you for that, Chef Zero. Blessing Bampians indeed. Good morning, team. T-Dog Yo-Yo. Good morning, gang. MK007. Like friends, and happy Friday. It is indeed Friday. We love Fridays. Archaic stream was quite enlightening, Citadel Daniel. Holds true to what much of Nolan is saying. Indeed, we're going to talk about what I've been saying. My predictions, we're getting close, guys. We're getting close. It's looking good out there. Happy Friday to you all. Good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew, and happy Friday from a cold Chicagoland. I'm heading north pretty soon, and everyone's warning me. Everybody's telling me, be careful. It's still winter. We'll see. Good morning. White House is posting cryptic messages on X, but it's Friday. LFG. We love the cryptic messages. Good morning, gang. Good morning, Charlosky. Seabridger Chef, thank you for sharing. Luke, indeed. CB Van says 91 degrees down to 31 degrees overnight. That is some climate changing right there. Good morning, gang. Good morning, Soap Miner. Glad you're in the house, indeed. Jack 2K, CB Van, it's 31 degrees air temperature here. With the wind chill, it's 21 degrees. At least it's Friday, though. AC to heater in 12 hours is crazy, indeed. Good morning, gang. Must have been windy. Happy Friday indeed. Glad to be with you all. Escape the Matrix. Yo, Chatelet. Friday. 3, 2, 1. Countism has commenced. Showtime. Indeed. Backdoor internet for the world. Who knows? Maybe Bitcoin rails. Interesting times. To be blunt, game over. Good morning, crew. Indeed. It's looking like the game is over. But Sunrise is still going. We're doing great with the Sunrise and Bitcoin running just fine. We're currently at 68,000 US trash tokens per Bitcoin. Things are going great. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. Got some really fun NPC news for you all this morning to get us started. We'll go quick, though, because so much happening in the news that we got a boogie. Because boy, oh boy, is it a busy day out there. First up, this is pretty great. We got more expert advice, and this one, I hope, again, I got to tell you, just get ready, because when you get expert advice, it's something that you really gotta get ready to etch this into your brain. You need this it just has to be second nature to you. Okay, are you ready? Stretching, okay, moving. You're not going to believe this, guys. The experts, it took a lot of studies. They had to pull people off the global warming story to this one because it's so big. Stretching can help combat a sedentary lifestyle. So I know what you're saying. That movement can combat not moving. And you're like, oh my God, I never thought of that before. Well, luckily, we've got experts. Luckily, these guys are around to help you. Now you know. If you move, it's going to combat your immobility. Being mobile is actually the answer to solving the immobility problem. Yeah. I mean, where would we be? Where would we be as a society without these experts? Now you know, guys. So if you're sitting there this weekend and saying, oh, I'm immobile, I'm having a lot of problems because of my immobility, well, now you know the answer, guys. The answer is simple. It's really simple. Move. Yeah, there you go. Move. So, good thing. Good thing you came here this morning. You'd never have known. We got this. Both Republicans and Democrats are pitching ideas intended to address affordability. More expert stuff here, guys. But right away, experts warn that price controls, guys, price controls, all right, can lead to shortages or hoarding or other bad outcomes. Can you believe? Thank God. I just was like, why don't we just freeze all the prices? Right? This is the kissing cousin to print more money. And no one needs to be poor if we just print more money. We heard that from our favorite Chinese professor the other day. Right? It's the same thing. But I didn't know. I thought you could just freeze prices and it would all be fine. But no, in fact, there's unintended consequences. Thank you, experts. We needed that. Now we get this one too, Washington Post. There's a growing unease within the GOP at the presence of bigotry in the ranks. Leaks of offensive group chats and infighting over the bounds of acceptable political discourse are fanning anxiety in the party. Maybe the kids are not all right. There's Nick Fuentes in the picture. But didn't Nick Fuentes, didn't he say he's voting Democrat this year? I think he should just register as a Democrat. You know, that's what Scott Adams did when he was a bigot. He just registered as a Democrat so that he could tarnish the Democrat Party. Do you think Nick Fuentes is going to do that? No. He's going to keep telling you to not vote GOP, but he's also going to wear the racist cloak for the GOP. It's perfect. It's perfect. Thank you, Washington Post. You know, Washington Post is just, they're so in tune with what's going on in Republican politics. They're just the best. They know everything. They got it perfect, right? Trump and his racist friend Nick Fuentes, who said he's never voting for him ever again and then have to kick him out. That's it. There you go. Thank you, Washington Post. It's excellent, right? Bigotry among young conservatives has Republicans on edge. Guys, everyone's worried about the bigotry. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We can't handle it. I heard a bunch of you conservatives out there were laughing at all the Black Snape videos yesterday. I heard you were all watching those Black Snape videos and saying, wow, it's a platform for racism. I don't want to be associated with this at all. That's what everyone was saying. Uh-oh, guys. The cherry trees at the Tidal Basin in D.C. reached peak bloom today, earlier than normal for the 7th year in a row. Here's some beautiful pictures of D.C. Can you believe? How are they surviving down there with this global? Look at it. Look, they got occupied territory. My goodness. Thank you, Washington Post. Oh, this is, there we go. Like Murtaza Merchant says here, you're not going to believe it, guys. The U.S. has caused $10 trillion worth of climate change damage since 1990, research finds. Guys, I was like, it's only 5 trillion. And now The Guardian has come out with this article. It's actually 10 trillion. And you're out there saying there's no such thing as global warming. We got research, right? We just found out these are the same guys that had the 485 million years of climate data. We've also got all the economic data from the past 30-something years, 36 years. It's no problem. 10 trillion. Now we know. Put them in jail. Is that you? It's probably you guys. You out there with your 91 degrees down to 31 using your air conditioner and then your heater. You're part of this $10 trillion problem. That's you. Uh-oh, guys. Prominent climate change scientist resigns from NASA, citing Trump's attack on science. He attacked science. Science was just sitting there minding its own business, saying, I got climate data in 485 million years. I know that the U.S. economy has wasted $10 trillion on climate change in the past 36 years. See, that's just science. But meanwhile, Trump's attacking it. Now we find out Kate Marvel, a well-known author, she's an author. She's been publishing. Joins an estimated 95,000 people who have left the federal science agency since President Trump returned to the White House. Where else are we going to get the experts? Look at what Canada is doing. They're studying the underwater sounds and what it means for the fish around Iqaluit and Nunavut, right? What are we going to do without these experts? I just showed you some experts that linked. I just showed you the ones that linked moving with combating a sedentary lifestyle. How are we going to exist as a society without these 95,000 people? Especially when Trump's out there attacking science, minding its own business, just telling you about 485 million years of climate data. Jeez. And now this. This one. Whoa. You thought things were bad right now. We got the bigots with Trump, right? We got all that. And now Trump is getting his way with the Olympic Games. Ahead of the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, the International Olympic Committee banned transgender women from competing in women's events. And now, what the White House cheered the decision, but here's how it could impact the games. Guys, how can it impact the games? We fired the 95,000 scientists. They're all gone. I don't know what this means. What does it mean? If transgenders are banned from the Olympics, what does it mean? How is it going to impact the games? Oh no, what are we going to do? I don't understand how it's going to impact the games. Are you telling me that a ban on transgender athletes, let me just try and think about this for a second. I just wish I had an expert around. I think it means there's going to be no transgender athletes in the Olympics. I think that's I think that's what it means. That's a problem, because what would we do, right? Like, figure skating, according to the Walrus, has long been a space for LGBTQS2S plus. What's the plus? Athletes to shine. But now they can't do it. Skate Canada, no events in Alberta, no trans athletes. Look what we're missing out on. Look what they get in Europe. Look what they had. They had this beautiful trans
naismoodissa, vaikka syntyperäisin onkin mies. Ja sieltä on niin kuin 9 vuotta aikaa, eli siihen 9 vuoteen sisältyy aika paljon. Eli kun lähdetään ihan nolla.
I believe we're going to be deprived of this athleticism, of this beautiful, courageous soul. I mean, get up, please get up. I'm cheering for you. Let's not fall. Go, get steady. Get up. See, what are we going to do without that? It's not going to be easy, guys. It's not going to be easy. Major problems happening. Major problems. That's what's up, everyone. Sad to see it. Very sad. No more trans in the Olympics. That's it. That's it for them. It's all over. It's all over for the trans in the Olympics, guys. I just don't know what it means. What's going to happen? What could possibly happen now? There you go. So that's what's up. Nolan, the experts need to trumpet this from the rooftop to save people. That's what I'm saying. It's a big breakthrough. Moving solves sedentary lifestyle. No way. It's true. It changes everything. Oh my God, the experts acknowledge that price controls lead to a bad society. I know. Unintentional experts, simply certified simply stupid. Same people that count trees. No, they count the branches, right? And then they do an average of the butterflies on a branch. And then, or no, I guess they do have to do the trees, right? So it's the trees, and then there's an average of branches per tree, and then they take a branch, and then they do an average of butterflies per branch, and boom, you have very credible data on butterflies from satellites. We have satellites that can count the butterflies. So good. There you go. How about 10 quadrillion kabillions? Chef Zero asked. I only thought it was 5 trillion, but the experts told me it's 10. So now we know. Come on, don't exaggerate, Chef Zero. Take them seriously. Come on. I demand the experts of The Guardian recount the trillions owed by the USA. Climate change damage. Exactly. Rowdy neighbors moved in, ruined everything. How can you keep that athletic specimen out of the games? She's the greatest skater I've ever seen. It reminds me of the ice capades in Slapshot. It sure does. That means we get a new trainee Olympics. I do like the enhanced games, though. Apparently, there's a guy who's probably going to be able to beat Usain Bolt's record, an American fellow who's juiced. and he's going to be running in the Juiced Games. I don't know when they are, but he's got a Juiced Games thing coming up, and they say he can break 9.5 for the 100-meter dash. That's what people are saying. We'll find out. I'll watch it just for that. I mean, I don't want to ever encourage the juicing in sports, but a 100-meter dash with juiced guys sounds pretty cool. I have a strong feeling biology is going to win in the end. It's not nice to fool Mother Nature. No. But that counting down on the fly. There we go. Climate change stories. Yeah, they're so good. Yeah, Jack 2K. Juiced Games. Yeah, they're doing enhanced, it's called. It's Olympics for people on steroids. So we'll see. I mean, again, I prefer the no steroid approach, but doesn't seem realistic anymore. And the whole Olympics thing is kind of stupid anyway, right? I mean, I used to, that I was like the biggest fan of the Olympics for many years. I was a huge Olympics fan, but that's one of those things that with all of this understanding we have about the world and how things have changed, it's just one of those ones where I don't give a shit anymore. I actually hate them. I don't think I watched a single minute other than a little bit of the Canadians crying in the hockey game against the Americans this year, the male team. Otherwise, not that into it. All right, let's get into our normal news. Let's have a coffee. We've got so much that I got to move, So first up, Trump. We'll start with our Iran update, right? We like to start with Iran these days just because it's on everyone's mind and people thinking about it a lot. Here's what we got from Iran. So the first story is that Trump has changed the timeline. He gave a little more time. As per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6th, Eastern Time. Talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others, they're going very well. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This is called the Golden Bridge, according to Sun Tzu. Here we have it. Advises against pressing a desperate foe too hard, advocating instead for providing them with a clear route to withdraw or surrender, often referred to in strategic commentary as building a golden bridge. So that looks like it's a golden bridge. Second to that knowledge, is Iran a threatened foe? Well, UAE turning on it, right? UAE rejects the ceasefire with Iran, demands Tehran's full threat network be dismantled first. Ambassador Yusuf Al-Otaiba confirms UAE will join efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, a lifeline of global oil. Also reaffirms a staggering 1.4 trillion UAE investment in a commitment to the United States. Gulf tensions rising, global stakes escalating. People see the global escalation. They said, Iran is mobilizing 1 million soldiers as well, ground soldiers. But that is some of the biggest fake news on the internet. Let them do that. 1 million soldiers when you have zero ability to defend the air and you've completely abdicated and capitulated air superiority to the Americans, it would be the fastest way to end the war. So anyone out there today telling you that the Iranians are massing 1 million soldiers is trying to hand off the conversation to the Americans sending the Green Berets to Karg Island. They are not even related. Just because one side has ground troops and the Americans are sending in a specialized force does not mean everyone is getting ready for a ground war. If 1 million soldiers in Iran got together, that is a gift to peace, because nothing in the last 100 years suggests at all that troops can amass in public in great numbers when there is absolutely total air superiority from the enemy, in this case, the Americans. There's no way I don't think it can ever happen. I think anyone telling you that the Iranians are amassing a ground force right now is trying to just get you into escalatory theater, because they can't be that stupid. There's no way there's 1 million soldiers gathering, even in 3 or 4 separate gatherings and constellations of troops. The minute you'd have 10,000, the minute you'd have enough to justify using the jet fuel to go over there, they'd be wiped out. So there's no way that's happening, and do not listen to ground force deployment stories from Iran. They're fake. because there's no such thing when you have this kind of air superiority enjoyed by the Americans. Now, I won't deny damage being taken by by Iraq, Kuwait, Israel, Saudi Arabia with the drones and the missiles. Okay, they have some capacity, but that has nothing to do with mounting any form of ground force in Iran. That's not possible. They'll be wiped out within a minute. So anyone, I see that story all over the internet, it's fake. So don't listen to it. The UAE just did what NATO wouldn't. Abu Dhabi told allies it will deploy its own navy as part of a Hormuz security force and is pushing dozens of countries to join. It also is drafting a UN Security Council resolution with Bahrain through Russia, though Russia and China will likely block it. The most telling quote from the Emirati minister Sultan Al-Jabbar: Iran holds Hormuz hostage. Every nation pays the ransom at the gas pump, at the grocery store, at the pharmacy. Trump begged NATO for weeks. Germany said no. Japan said no. France stalled. Britain offered drones. The country that actually stepped up in the Gulf monarchy that's been absorbing 2,000 plus Iranian attacks since February 28th. And in fact, two tragic civilians, I think, died yesterday in Abu Dhabi. That's what some people say. Mark Carney sent out a note talking about it in Abu Dhabi, and that's the only place I saw it, but it came from the Canadian government, so it's probably closer to true, even though you can see the earmarks of influence because it came from Carney. But we don't want any censorship of bad stories, so that is a true bad story. But nevertheless, UAE looking like the Abraham Accords are sticking even more solidly than I would have predicted at the beginning of this conflict. It looks airtight between Saudi Arabia, UAE, even Qatar, Bahrain for sure. Yesterday, again, Mohammed bin Salman pushing Trump to finish the job with Iran. So just as a sign of how powerful these accords are going, here you see it again. This is from Batya Ungur Sargon. That's what Trump knows when he's out there taking on the global liberal elite. He's created a new anti-terror coalition in the Middle East based not on the myth of exporting democracy, but on the reality of shared interests. It's why I've been saying for a long time that the Middle East and Japan and South Korea are the true coalition that America will rely on, and not Europe. While Europe and the Democrats moan and groan about how terrible it is that we're striking Iran, the Israelis, the Saudis, the UAE, even the Qataris have joined hands with each other and the U.S. to rid the world of the threat posed by the largest state sponsor of terror. And now I also want to point out our great Professor Jang. I guess I got to play some audio. I fucking accents.
First thing that the Iranians want to do is create a jihad to unite all the Shia against the American empire. All right, so what they want to do is create an uprising.
Egg war with that. Okay, we're going to create an uprising with a jihad. And of course, this scammer out here, completely wrong. This is why predictions are so important. He was telling you that the whole Middle East was going to uprise. This was in March 3rd. Oh my God, this is the big news from Professor Jang. The Muslim world will unite and fight against the oppressive actions of Israel and the American empire. So dumb, so stupid, so obviously fake. And here, the $1.4 trillion investment into America is ongoing. Again, why I always tell you predictions are so important, because when you make a prediction and it comes true, it's a reflection of your worldview when you made that prediction. It's not, no one has a crystal ball. All you can judge are incentives, economics, and you can use those to, at best, see around corners using the mirrors of the human mind and various incentives. And it's not that I randomly picked out a story that the Abraham Accords were going to hold solid. I told you on the first day of this conflict, the number one story on day one was the Abraham Accords were solid. And it showed that there was a bond between these countries. There were shared interests between these countries, and that you could use those shared interests to predict what was going to happen. And that model held. Mr. Jang here, Professor Jang, got it exactly wrong. Exactly wrong. The opposite of what ended up happening. There is no jihad from the Middle East. It's fake. The Shia thing is fake, 100% fake. The Sunni Shia fake thing, that was already a construct. That was one of my first signs about how fake everything was in the Middle East. When I lived in South Korea and I had a lot of involvement. So the years I lived in South Korea, I had a lot of involvement with the Muslim community, particularly the Iraqi refugees there. Now, not my first tour in Korea. My first tour in Korea was before I went to law school. My second tour in Korea was after law school, where I worked as a lawyer and lived in the downtown part of Korea where the U.S. military bases are. Now, this whole neighborhood is kind of like a hub of arms dealers. It's kind of a Mos Eisley situation. You would have recognized this neighborhood in the news when all those people got crushed at a Halloween party from overcrowding and a bunch of people died. That was a couple of years ago. So that was the neighborhood. And it happens to be where the only mosque in Seoul is. And so there was a really great Iraqi restaurant there, and there was an Iraqi refugee family, and I was helping them with some of their immigration to the United States. Their family had been split up by the war, and some were here and some were there. And so one of them, there were three brothers, all of them made it to Korea because the refugee doors were open for Korea. They're all really wealthy guys. They owned one of the biggest date farms outside of Baghdad, and they're old family, great family, just awesome people. And so I spoke with them all the time about this stuff, and they always reminded me that the Shia thing was fake and that Sunni thing, and Iraq would be one of those countries where they could understand that a lot better. So it was a pretty important way for me anyway, to understand a little more about what was going on in that part of the world. I actually met the Iraqi president at the time, a Kurdish fella. And, it was an amazing neighborhood. It was a place as well where a lot of journalists ended up from the Korean legacy news, the fake news. There was one bar in particular where a lot of diplomats, arms dealers, news guys, a real foreigner meeting spot that a lot of Koreans went to, because a lot of those Koreans in the news were not able to go into normal Korean society anymore just because of how homogenous it was. A lot of them had spent time abroad. Koreans who spend time abroad have a lot of trouble reintegrating exactly into like hardcore Korean culture. I got to know all the journalists there, people who are crossing borders on land, going to North Korea on land. It was an amazing educational experience for myself. And anyway, there you go. So I had a pretty good idea, or at least a better idea than most, about how fake this Shia Sunni thing really was. And you can see here that my worldview and my predictions held up way better than free egg roll guy here. So there you go. And that's why you can see the economists here, advantage Iran, right? So the economists losing their Rothschild owners yesterday. The mullah regime of Iran is in very deep trouble. Any critical thinker can see that. What I find remarkable is how many people who should know better are so blinded by hostility to Netanyahu and Trump that they ignore the military context and the domestic context inside Iran. So indeed, I mean, I continue to see this as, I'm almost over conflict, but it's hard to predict. We don't, it's war, so they can still escalate. So I don't want to say 100%. But looking more and more like it. So Trump yesterday had a lot of fun talking about this on Fox News. So he did this whole skit where they were talking about if he was gay, the new Ayatollah, which is probably not true. It's probably just a trick, more subtle persuasion and manipulation. But just listen to Trump, and because he had just a great day of Trump theater yesterday, and we're going to talk a lot about his day.
You kind of suggested that we knocked out Ayatollah Jr. Have we? And did the CIA tell you that Ayatollah Jr. is gay?
Well, they did say that, but I don't know if it was only them. I think a lot of people are saying that, which puts them off to a bad start in that particular country. I sort of have to smile to myself when I see people trying to defend the Palestinian regime for women for Palestine, but they kill women if you don't wear a certain if you don't wear a certain cloth all over your face, you have no chance of living. And, when I look at gays for Palestine, but they kill gays. They kill them instantly. They throw them off buildings. And I'm saying, who are the gays for Palestine? And they have a significant amount of gays for Palestine. Now, I think I did very well with the gay vote. Okay, I even played the gay national anthem as my walk-off. Okay, campaign, and I think it probably helped me. But I did great with no Republicans ever gotten the gay vote like I did, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's great. Perhaps it's because I'm from New York City. I don't know, but the gay national anthem was my walk-off, and I think it probably had. But think of it, gays for Palestine. But they kill gays in Palestine. So when they hear that, I think probably we can talk them out of it. It shouldn't be too hard.
So he had a bunch of bangers yesterday, guys. That's just the opening. That's just the opening bit, right? Here he is yesterday, just having a great time. So he's talking about the war with Iran, but he hears that they're going to build a statue to him in Iran. So Burgum starts talking about the statue. So Trump does his Trump theater yesterday. So he's doing the Fox News call-ins, talking about the gay stuff. And then he does one of his best, the Oval Office stuff when you go right into Trump theater and he's got you there with the cameras and the cabinet. That is sort of peak Trump theater. But close behind is these cabinet meetings. Now, these are, even if it isn't Trump starting them, these are a great idea. I'm really glad Trump does these. This should be a model for every president going forward, Democrat, Republican. It's just great to see the cabinet together. And it's great for each of them with everyone in the room, including the president, to have to give their talking points and their updates. And it's just a really efficient method. And I love the transparency. You want to see cabinet interacting. You want to see them all together. This is how the executive branch should be run. And the executive branch, as we're going to talk about more today, becoming more and more important in the American system, likely all that we have left of the republic, it seems. We'll be talking about that. But here he is talking in this video about the statue. Just watch. So Burgum brings it up, but then it takes a bunch of time and Trump goes back to it. But it's Trump theater at its finest.
I literally think they're going to put up a statue to President Trump, and I'm not it's not a political statement. It's an actual thing.
So. That would be a great honor.
No, because it's like they view President Trump like. That flows to American refineries on the Gulf Coast, lowering the price of gas in America. So it's a.
Forget that. When are they going to do the statue? The hell with you.
When are they going to do the statue? Oh my God. It's another masterclass from Trump that the haters will completely miss because they're so blinded by their own hostility. When are they going to do the statue is not a demand. It's the opposite. He's taking the idea of recognition and pushing it to an extreme to make a joke. Sure, he probably welcomed the statue and may even feel he's earned it. But he also knows the haters who diminish everything he's achieved would never allow that kind of recognition. So the baseline assumption is that it won't happen. And he's fine with that. Which is where the self-deprecating touch comes in. The humor is the exaggeration. He's mocking the idea by overstating it. But because it's delivered completely straight, the haters miss the irony and read it as ego instead of what actually is. And it's, again, just pure Trump theater at its best. Trump doing these press conferences the way he does. And again, I'll always remind you that the number one reason I was attracted to Trump was exactly this. It was the 10,000 unsolicited words a day, unscripted words a day, the off-the-fly and nature of his performances, and that it wasn't scripted and it wasn't teleprompter guy like Obama was, and that made it really that much more appealing. Here he is again with Trump theater talking about uranium and negotiations. It's always amazing when reporters, not exactly known for being like a rich and successful class of people, definitely not noted for their abilities in negotiations, right? Prose and writing and maybe telling you the news, but negotiating is sort of another thing. And I love when these journalists mistake their journalistic mimetic idea of who Trump is as a buffoon with their ability to understand negotiating better than him. So it's always great when they think they got a gotcha on Trump and it's about negotiation. So here, listen to Trump talking about his number one skill, negotiating.
Mr. President, are you going to go in for the uranium? Like, how do you secure Iran? And
let's assume I was or I wasn't. Why would I ever answer a question?
Can you accomplish
what kind of a question? Am I going to go in for the... Oh, yeah, I'm going in. We're going in tomorrow at 3 o'clock. How could you possibly ask a question like that and expect an answer? I don't know. But I don't know. I think you're a friendly person, too. It's just such a ridiculous question.
So just great stuff. And then here, I sort of aligned a lot with what Awakened Outlaw said here. Watching Trump today during the presser at his cabinet meeting only reinforced my long-held and time-tested belief that he serves as a human barometer in regards to the state of things, even without directly telling us as much. Sure, he verbally destroyed the stupid questions. That much is always a lock. But aside from his words, his tone and body language communicate to me that he's cool, calm, and collected as ever. I personally take stock of the moment through that lens, and that's why I don't sweat the details. He's effectively showing me what I need to know. I felt that for a long time. And that's, again, going back to what I said about Trump doing the unsolicited stuff, because I don't believe Trump capable of self-censorship. That's what I said. That's what I told the Chinese spies who were on me in China in 2016, asking all about Bitcoin in America and Trump and this and that, and having a long discussion about Hillary and Obama. Obama was still president when I was there. And I remember the Chinese spy pointing out to me that the U.S. was suffering greatly from self-censorship. And that's always what I believed Trump offered, was the inability to self-censor. I don't think he can do it. I don't think, of all the things that Trump is good at, the cost and benefit, just like I talk about the cost benefit and the engineering constraints around voting systems and Bitcoin and credibility and convenience. When it comes to public speaking, there is the same trade-offs that you have to make, and that I think exist at a foundational level for all of Trump's impromptu ability to work on the fly and not be part of a focus group type of Obama staged speech filled with discipline, filled with messaging discipline. The opposite being that Trump, I don't think, is capable of that, because he is so off the fly, off the cuff, and impromptu. So I believe what he lacks is the capacity to self-censor, and that shows up in the energy of him being present and speaking off the cuff the way he does in an unscripted way. So that's what makes him a good human barometer. You can generally understand that you're getting something like the directional truth from him, even though he exaggerates and fibs and lies and white lies and all that kind of stuff. That's not the same as self-censoring. Self-censoring is not saying something and trying to hide it. Diverting someone with an exaggeration of the truth is not the same as self-censorship. So very interesting stuff. And indeed, you get a sense of exactly why he's so effective at this when you think about it in terms of those trade-offs. So now going back to my predictions about what the war is really about, not about Iran. Trump spent a lot of time in this interview yesterday in this cabinet meeting talking about Europe and its own failures and the failures of our allies. He came out again and said it was a test of NATO. He kept a lot of criticism for the UK. Here's what he said.
We had the UK say that we'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have. But we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war is over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it. And we don't need them. We had the UK
says we don't need them, mocks them. Here you have him talking about Europe and NATO and what they did. Oh, whoops. What did I just do? Oh, no, that's it. Tell me if the audio is still coming through.
And nobody's a match for the United States, but they're not a match for the United States. It's small potatoes. That's why I'm so disappointed in NATO, because this was a test for NATO. This was a test. You can help us. You don't have to, but if you don't have, if you don't do that, we're going to remember. Just remember this in a number of months from now. Remember my statements. They have an expression, a great expression, never forget. Never forget. And
so never forget comes out. Here he also talks more about the UK. It wasn't the end. He had a lot of words about all these guys.
Why what?
Why he was reluctant to help with Iran.
He didn't have to. I didn't ask him. I just said, just tell me no. I mean, we're always going to be there, or at least we were. I don't know about anymore, to be honest with you. I have to be honest. We were always there when they needed help. We always would have been there when they needed help. I mean, think of it. We're there to protect Europe from Russia. In theory, it doesn't affect us. We have an ocean, big, fat, beautiful ocean. But we're there to protect NATO, to protect them from Russia. But they're not there to protect us. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense.
Explain why he was reluctant to help.
Why he what?
Why he was reluctant to help.
So, and now you can see a little more, again, the way to see around corners, like I said, when I was talking about Professor Zhang and jihad that was coming for America, the Muslim countries coming for America. You can see here nothing to do with what's going on. What Trump is actually doing in Iran, you can tell it almost has nothing to do with the Middle East. It's just choke points. It's just leverage around the world. It's just Trump's ability to get the American economy and the isolation that he's about to establish for the American economy and the lack of dependencies and codependencies that it ought not have with the rest of the world are getting clipped and destroyed and removed so that America can enter into the golden age without any rug pulling going on from Iran or the city of London or Europe or any of these other bloodsuckers. So 10V Retina says here, it's all about this hub because of what it does for leverage everywhere else around the world. She says, when I published my first thread breaking down the tariffs last year, the question I kept getting was simple. Has it worked? Where does it all lead? So go back to the tariff day, right? And that's what we said yesterday. It's related to the tariff day. Many of you asked me whether the strategy would actually succeed. I told you we would have to wait until the process reached its closing moments before giving the full verdict, and that moment is now. Tariffs weren't the end game. They were the opening move, a deliberate economic shock designed to say wholesale renegotiation of global supply chains, alliances, and leverage points. But disruption alone doesn't realign systems. It creates pressure, but not resolution. That's where Iran comes in. We are currently in the climactic phase of the global reordering that began with tariffs. What we are watching in the Middle East is not just the regional conflict, it's the central hub through which Trump is accelerating, testing, and finally locking in the new global order. The board is being reset in real time, faster than most analysts can track, and the pieces are falling into place with unmistakable force. In the last few weeks, I have been on the ground, in the rooms, in direct conversations with senior American, Israeli, Iranian, and Indian foreign policy leaders. This is not armchair analysis. For years, I have worked inside the live foreign policy establishments on Capitol Hill and national security circles in Washington and abroad, gathering the 360-degree view that mainstream media simply would not touch. The Iran war is the single conflict being used as a multi-purpose lever to simultaneously reshape energy flows, trade corridors, alliance geometry, Russia's position, the dollar system, domestic political space, and Europe's role in the emerging order. One more, 11 interlocking theaters, all routed through Iran as the hub. This is not coincidence, it is design. This only works because of where Iran sits. Energy flows through the Hormuz, militant networks run out through Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. Trade corridors linking Russia, India, and the Gulf depend on Iranian geography, and escalation in Iran never stays contained. It spreads across multiple fronts almost immediately. There is no other node where pressure transmits this broadly, this quickly. This is what makes Iran a lever. I started releasing the full analysis essays on Iran's system on my Substack. This series is structured to show a clear progression. It begins with what was inherited. So she goes on here to talk about the Sharia thing, the Shia thing, the old order that allowed the Shia militant axis to take root, and the first attempt by Trump to replace it with a new regional architecture before Saudi Arabia's hesitation forced an early adjustment. It then moves into the acceleration phase where Israel begins to break out on its own terms. Global trade corridors start to physically reroute. Energy leverage through Hormuz comes into play, and the dollar system is quietly reinforced. From there, we move into the live payoff, Pakistan emerging as the indispensable back channel in real time, and the collision between external map making and domestic political realities inside the United States. The series culminates in the final crystallization where a potential grand bargain with Russia and the unraveling of Europe's position bring the new order out of theory and into structure. Each stage builds on the last. each one feeds the next. Together, they show this single conflict is being used to complete what tariffs began, a comprehensive reordering of global power on American terms. So this has been the worldview here since the tariffs began. And it's helped us predict a lot of things over the last year. And that has been a frame. Again, no one has a crystal ball, right? That's not how you make predictions. You make predictions by looking at incentives and suggesting. A second, I'm just plugging my computer in. And then suggesting that those incentives actually spell out how people are going to behave and act. And it looks like that's what we've got. And you can see right away how Europe is reacting to this, right? Here's what they do. European powers accused Russia now of helping Iran. They're trying this again. This is just yesterday from Reuters, or this morning even from Reuters. European powers accused Russia of helping Iran target U.S. forces in the Middle East, saying they would raise the issue with Washington as G7 foreign ministers meet in France. So again, you can see what the priorities of Europe are here. It's Kaja Kallas again. Russia's bad. And now you see the Wall Street Journal trying to pull their stuff. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has become the standard bearer for Western political opposition to the U.S. president. So what is exactly the standard bearer for opposition to Trump's agenda for America, which relates to changing Europe? Is it this? Is it the youth? This is in Spain. Youth. I can't even really read this story because of how gross it is. I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday, but if he wants to be the standard bearer, this is the standard that he's bearing right here, right? If Pedro Sanchez and the Wall Street Journal is going to tell you that this guy's the standard bearer, here, 1 second, I just need a Kleenex. So if he's going to tell you that this guy is the standard bearer, well, this is what it is, right? So Youth Center did not report the 16-year-old girl's rape to authorities because Muslim boys are already under enough police scrutiny, they said. Now, the story of this, I don't even want to read it because it's the darkest thing I've probably ever read in my life. I can't really explain to you how bad this is. So I'm not going to. If you have any interest in reading the most disgusting, terrible story in the history of socialism, in the history of the failures of Europe, this young woman is it. And Peachy Keenan says here, the real Handmaid's Tale is 1 trillion times worse than the stupid books, and not a single liberal feminist gives a shit. And again, this AI robot guy in X talking about Noelia Castillo Ramos, I think tells a story here of the bottom of the barrel of Europe. And if this fella really is the standard bearer, he can have it. He can have it. Let him be the standard bearer, because this is what he's representing here. And I'm not going to tell you what the story's about. If you want to have a good day, ignore it, okay? Just ignore the story. If you want to know how bad things actually got in Europe, then read about the story, because it's it's bad. It's the worst thing I've ever read in my life, I think. And I don't know what else to say. So let him be the standard bearer. That's fine. Meanwhile, while he's the standard bearer, yesterday in Europe, you had a vote on the remigration, kicking people out. This is what it looked like. This is the European Parliament yesterday vote.
Okay.
We voted to.
We have many votes to go through, guys. Let's.
So upset. We should see how upset some of them are. And here they say cracks are now forming in the European dam. Things are going to break. The people have had enough. So what's amazing about this story, so they vote on this stuff. Now it's the EU, so now these laws pass down to the countries. But what happened here that was different was the centrists sided with the nationalists over the socialists. And that hasn't happened in the European Union in a long time. I don't know, it might have happened before, but not for a while. This scene we saw yesterday where the centrists, the people who are sort of the center left liberals, center right conservatives, had always been siding with the socialists and treating the deportation people as extremists. Yesterday, the coalition completely flipped. And so even yesterday in Brussels, they had big protests by the youth. No video, no photo, no description can capture the power and excitement of a remigration demonstration. They are shouting Europe, Youth, Revolution, and they mean it. This was last night in Europe, and they had So Europe changing very quick, and a lot of the leverage is coming from what Trump is forcing over there. And of course, Kaja Kallas, like I said, trying to get things going with the whole, Europe, Russia's helping Iran. You got to help us. You shouldn't be friends with Russia. She also spent time yesterday trying to convince the Americans that they can't give up Ukrainian land in order to have peace negotiations with Russia. And it's a big problem if some half of Ukraine is gone and Ukraine is half as big, and that we should all care about this and keep fighting Iranians because, of course, they're causing all this trouble with the Strait of Hormuz and America. Meanwhile, yesterday we find out that the Ukrainians are actually working with NATO countries to allow drones to pass over them, the Baltics in particular, to go and bomb Russian infrastructure in the north, oil infrastructure. And indeed, we are on the brink of an Article 5 trigger while the world is distracted by Iran. There has been no official statement from Russian officials, but Russian media is claiming the Baltics are letting Ukraine use the cover of their airspace to send drones toward Russia's northern ports. The moment Russia tries to shoot them down over Baltic territory, Western media will frame it as Russia firing missiles into the Baltics. If Russia says nothing officially, it will happen again and again and again. If they do acknowledge it, they are under pressure to retaliate. So this is why we're going to be out of NATO. And Trump set it up yesterday in the meeting saying we're not going to help them. Why should we do this? And indeed, Trump yesterday, even with all of this Trump theater that we saw and with all of these Russian conversations that we saw and all of these stories, Trump also spent time talking about how Zelensky and Ukraine were indeed related to the money laundering, to the Biden reelection. And here, Trump tweeted this out yesterday. Our Truth Social did out. U.S. intercepted Ukrainian government messages discussing plot to route money to Biden reelection. I mean, we knew that because Zelensky went and campaigned with Biden with Shapiro in Pennsylvania. The bad news keeps piling up for the clown in Kiev. Donald Trump now knows Zelensky was trying to fund Biden's campaign against him. Of course, all of us in Bitcoin knew this for a long time because there was the stories related to Sam Bankman-Fried, which we covered very closely on this. Remember all aid we sent to Ukraine, and Sam Bankman-Fried was allegedly laundering it back to Democrats. They believe they did it again with Ukraine, sending hundreds of millions of U.S. taxpayer dollars to the DNC to help Biden's 2024 run against President Trump. Shocker. DNI Gabbard revealed the U.S. intelligence intercepted that they were going to disguise money marked for clean energy, for environmental causes, send our tax money to Ukraine, and then back to the DNC and the Biden-Harris campaign. DNI Gabbard is digging deeper to expose the plot to see if and how much was carried out and stolen from U.S. taxpayers. None of this is surprising and happens to this day all over the world. Why do you think every other day that when Biden was in office, they were sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Ukraine? It wasn't aid. It was money laundering 101. And we've known that for a while. And now going back, of course, seeing this Ukrainian stuff, we have John Solomon talking about it. We're getting back into declassification world just as the war is starting to wrap up. I'll let you listen to John Solomon. Let me know if the audio is coming. No audio. Thank you for that. All right. I will reshare. Nobody knows why it went out, but we'll talk about it. So here what you're seeing is the, not only is Trump here talking about the 2024 election, we also have declassification on 2020 and Ukraine, which we understood for a long time was a connection. So here he is talking about it.
Illicit effort by a Ukrainian to try to influence the United States election in favor of Hillary Clinton. That's a profound statement coming from the top law enforcement official of Ukraine. Why is it important? There's a court in Ukraine that's already concluded that Ukrainian officials leaked Paul Manafort's financial records to try to sway the U.S. election. You haven't heard anything about that in the American press, but that ruling occurred recently. Then a parliamentary member comes out and says, I have a tape of these law enforcement officials saying they did it specifically to help Hillary Clinton. That becomes the foundation of the Ukrainian investigation.
You have talked to people that have heard this tape, correct?
Well, the prosecutor himself has heard the tape and said it was important enough, good enough evidence to warrant opening the investigation. So the tape, the court ruling, the top prosecutor in Ukraine says there was a foreign power.
Two separate issues here. Number one,
yes,
did Ukrainian...
So things are moving along that way. Just yesterday, of course, that's why you see Russia getting a tour. Camille Dmitriev, the head of the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the United States, getting toured around by Rep. Luna. They were in the Congress. These are all Russian members of parliament. Came to the Capitol the first time in 25 years, and these are Russians touring the U.S. Capitol, having a look. Again, this is the Sovereign Wealth Fund. This is most of Putin's money. And Luna giving a tour of the Hall of Statues here, Rotunda. All the Russian members of parliament, all excited, having a good tour. 25 years it's been. 25 years. And that happened on the same day that is that David Zell? I think it is. Yo, that's David Zell. Look at that. I only just picked up on that. Dang, David Zell cruising through Bitcoiners, Patriots in control. That is legitimately David Zell, the head of the Bitcoin Policy Institute. Why is David Zell, or maybe it's not David Zell, come on, can't be David Zell. It's not David Zell. But it also is David Zell. I don't know. Is that David Zell? Let me know. Someone find out if David Zell, I know he was in Congress yesterday because they had the de minimis tax briefing yesterday, right? So David Zell did the de minimis tax briefing on the Hill yesterday. So he was 100% in Capitol Hill. And someone find out if David Zell was with Rep. Luna yesterday, because that would even make things that much spicier. So find out if you can, guys. That looks like David Zell. A bit grainy, so maybe I'm wrong, but that looks like we've got a scoop here. So there you go. So Russia coming in. Here is Eisenhower with some predictions, let's say. Destroy Nord Stream in stealth, unravel European energy systems, double exports of LNG to Europe, aid implosion of Syria, Assad, isolate Iran as final pillar in the Gulf, capture Maduro and hidden Bitcoin, corner Venezuela's oil market, acquire total control of Western petrol, work with Israel to attack Iran's energy, force closure of the Strait of Hormuz, global energy and oil demand skyrockets, U.S. steps in as the only accessible supplier, prepare installation of new Iranian figurehead, shadow work to make OPEC irrelevant, petrodollar upgrades to petro plus LNG dollar, new energy dollar boosts U.S. dollar demand, Israel's energy export revenues hit 4 billion U.S. trash tokens per year, cripple global energy infra to stall China's AI advance, signal to Russia what's next for their energy, negotiate peace deal with Ukraine and Russia, Trump leverage with Xi goes up 5x, accept local energy inflation temporarily, dominate AI race, which is dependent on energy, achieve ASI and AI scale to win AI wars, control global energy corridors and supply, control monetary system thanks to energy dollar, control AI thanks to energy plus monetary dominance. The U.S. empire turns 250 years old on July 4th. Looks like it just added another 250 years to its future tenure. Looking more and more like that, and the timing for all of these cryptic messages should be viewed in terms of this 1945 type situation that we're in. World War III looks like it is getting wrapped up. It's a psychological and economic war, and these are the final psychological cues. Big news today. Don't know what it is, but that's what they're saying, and they've been doing this for about 3 days. All of these cryptic messages coming through and all that stuff. So now going back to this new financial system that we're talking about, it does start with Bessent, of course. So Bessent, first of all, what I told you was going to happen over the next few months was that Trump was in charge of the narrative supply chain, and that he would be seeding the narrative supply chain after the Iranian war with audits. So I've been saying that consistently from January on. I said audits are going to be the number one story in the end, leading up to the midterms. And Bessent, of course, is the audit guy. So yesterday during the Trump Theater press conference cabinet meeting, he started talking about Bessent, and he gave his greatest compliment. So Trump's greatest compliment, as we know, is central casting. That's his number one. If you get the central casting compliment, then you're good as gold as far as Trump is concerned. So here he gives him the number one vote of approval.
I just want to ask you a question. Is this guy central casting? I'm looking at him. I'm in Treasury. He might not be so good for war. I don't know. No, I'm looking pretty good too. I'm looking at this guy. He's central casting. Even the glasses are perfect. Where do you get those glasses? I think I'm going to get glasses. That's beautiful. Great job.
Was there audio?
That's really good. No, he's done a great job, and you all have. Proud of you all. I just want to ask you a question.
So
is this guy central casting?
We got the audits coming. We'll be seeing more of the audits, of course. Here's some stuff from Minneapolis. We heard about the money flown out of Minneapolis airport by fraudsters has been tracked and used to purchase resorts in Kenya. So this all comes from Bessent's work. Here, apartment buildings in Nairobi, properties in Turkey, luxury homes, luxury cars, and 790 million US trash tokens taken from Minnesota to overseas. So that's what's going on over there. Now, again, one of the very interesting things that happened during the meeting yesterday, during this cabinet meeting. So he does all this work to laud Bessent and talk about how great he is. But Bessent gave him one incredible gift, I guess you could say, in return, which is that they're going to change the American currency. So you saw yesterday, Donald J. Trump's signature is going to be on the money from now on, not the Secretary of the Treasury. And here we see that this is kind of a big deal. This happens on the same day that the Rothschilds Paris office, or the same week that the Rothschilds Paris office was raided, the same week where the Rothschilds have to divest of The Economist. And here we see that Trump's name and the reconfiguration of the Treasury, its relationship with the executive, the Federal Reserve, all of that coming to the surface now. Again, this was what I said would be one of the biggest signature marks of this entire administration, a reformulated relationship with the Federal Reserve. I call it the subordination of the Federal Reserve to the Treasury. Here you say, under President Trump's leadership, we are on a path toward unprecedented economic growth, lasting dollar dominance, and fiscal strength and stability. The president's mark on history as the architect of America's golden age economic revival is undeniable. Printing his signature on American currency is not only appropriate, but also well-deserved. And people say, nothing is happening. And indeed, lots of people picking up on what a big deal this is. Here's the tales from the Crip Marty Bent's media outfit. The U.S. Treasury just announced something that hasn't happened since Abraham Lincoln was in office. This was the last time we had actual Treasury Department issued money, not the kind that comes from the Federal Reserve. This is a completely different thing. Starting in June, Donald Trump's signature will appear on all new U.S. paper currency, beginning with $100 bills, with other denominations to follow. His name replaces the Treasurer of the United States, a position that's had the signature on every bill since 1861. That's 165 years of unbroken tradition. Bessent called it a recognition of unprecedented growth. The bills themselves aren't going to be redesigned. all that other stuff. But indeed, this hasn't happened since Lincoln was president, and it is symbolic, sure, but it changes exactly what is. It gives us another way to interpret what's going on, right? Trump's signature will be added to the US dollar banknotes to commemorate the 200th anniversary of American independence. Trump's signature will replace that of the US Treasurer, which has appeared on the US dollar since 1861. And indeed, the article below laid out that Trump moved the Fed into the Treasury in March of 2020. It was one of the only media stories you can find on the subject. Within the story, the author says, "Meet your new Fed chairman, Donald J. Trump." And that happened the last time Trump was president. And I've been telling you that this subordination story was the key to understanding what is going on. Now, today, the fake news tried to run a story on this, tying Bessent to it. Financial Times exclusive. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent discussed tightening the U.S. Treasury's oversight to the Federal Reserve by adopting elements of the Bank of England's model. So they're trying to get the Bank of England in here. And now watch, Bessent goes absolutely scorched earth on them. This is one of the funniest texts you're ever going to read. He tweeted this last night by saying, "By publishing this explicitly false story, the Financial Times has officially become tabloid trash for market participants. Despite my direct, on-the-record denial of ever having advocated, explored, or espoused the idea that Chancellor Bank of England statute serving as a prototype for Treasury-Federal Reserve relationship, FT journalists manufactured a story with the headline, 'Scott Bessent praised Bank of England as model for tighter oversight of the Federal Reserve.'" So notice here that Bessent doesn't get into what I've been saying is the story, which is a subordination of the Federal Reserve to the Treasury, which was confirmed by the last note we talked about when I was mentioning the 2020 piece where Donald Trump was seen as the Fed chair. So here, indeed, the thing he's taking his time to point out is that we're not going to copy the British system or the Bank of England system. These pathetic journalists, this is from Bessent, have clearly fabricated a story to give the impression that both I and the Trump administration are setting about restructuring the relationship at a time when President Donald Trump has launched an unprecedented assault on the world's most important central bank. Their mendacious assertion is based on vague statements from unarmed financial industry executives familiar with the matter. Unnamed, sorry. In short, FT has literally manufactured an entirely fake policy position for me and the administration. Other than furthering a maliciously false narrative of dysfunction and divisiveness, it baffles the mind as to why they would shred their entire already diminished journalistic credibility. Over the last 10 years, I have written more than 20,000 words opining on the Federal Reserve decisions, personnel, structure, and modifications. Nowhere have I ever mentioned this ridiculous notion. The governor's letters to the chancellor have proven to be a useless and perfunctory device. There is much to be said about the storied Bank of England, but any recreation of its operating framework on this side of the Atlantic has never been contemplated. The shameful journalists and editors at the FT are shocking in their meretriciousness, lack of standards, and general intellectual libertinism. It is the worst tradition of Fleet Street to manufacture news rather than report it. They have brought irredeemable shame to their parent organization, Nikkei Incorporated, with whom I had previously held excellent relations. In 2025, I laid out a comprehensive 6,000-word review of each and every policy reform that I believe should be adopted by the Federal Reserve. Read my actual real thoughts on the proposals for the Federal Reserve reform and the international economy. And indeed, that is, I think, telling you everything you need to know about what's going on. And Pierre Rochard says here, when you look at the financial and regulatory infrastructure that has been put in place since Trump's election 507 days ago, it's obvious that Bitcoin is the most undervalued asset in human history. The next bull market will have no brakes. That's exactly how I see it. Now, something even bigger happened yesterday, not just Trump getting his name on the dollar, not just the reconfiguration of the dollar, of the Federal Reserve's relationship with the Treasury, all of which is coming into focus. I said most of this international stuff, everything you heard from Tanvi Radna, all these choke points, all of this internationalism, all this domestic audit stuff had to happen before the final hammer drops, which is the subordination of the Federal Reserve. This is going to happen by May, just in time for the golden age to kick off with America's 250th anniversary. From there on, it's audits, and that's a big part of the theater. But here, you're now seeing Trump reconstituting the job of president. Another prediction I made, that all we have left of the republic is the executive branch. That's why the cabinet meeting in the way that it does is important. Congress can't be relied on for anything. We'll see in a second. The courts are also bullshit. So yesterday, Trump now announced that he's basically going to take the power of the purse away from Congress. This is Rubicon type stuff here. This is Caesar type stuff. The radical, and it happens to be about the TSA question, right? All the TSA agents. The radical left Democrats and their leader, crying Chuck Schumer, have made it very clear when they stand where they stand, and that is on the side of criminal, illegal aliens and not the American people. They are refusing to fund immigration enforcement unless the Republicans agree to their open border policies, which will never, ever happen again. They almost destroyed our country, allowing 25 million people to enter from prisons, mental institutions, and insane asylums, those that are drug dealers and thousands of murderers, many of whom killed more than one person. Because the Democrats have recklessly created a true national crisis, I'm using my authorities under the law to protect our great country, and as I always will do. Therefore, I am going to sign an order instructing the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, to immediately pay our TSA agents in order to address the emergency situation and to quickly stop the Democrat chaos at the airports. It's not an easy thing to do, but I am going to do it. I want to thank our hardworking TSA agents and also ICE for their incredible help they were given to us at the airports. I will not allow the radical left Democrats to hold our country hostage any longer. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's why things are coming back to domestic affairs, and the courts required as well. You see yesterday Elon Musk getting into all this trouble with the jury in this case here. The jury in Elon Musk's Twitter shareholder case is compromised by significant bias. On the verdict form, which itself lacks any rigorous mathematical analysis, the jurors switched from black to blue ink and altered the text size precisely at the 420 valuation, inserting a numerical joke. This undermines any claim of neutrality. Kamala Harris received approximately 70% of the vote in the Northern District of California. This is a biased jury. Our justice system is not impartial. Cernovich says, what happens when the country's greatest builder can't trust judges and juries to follow the law? What happens is Rome. What happens is Rome. That's what happens. And what happens is the Republic is long gone, guys. And whatever we have left, it is not the courts or anything like that. So between what Elon Musk is experiencing, you can imagine you're going to see the Elon Musk return to the cabinet shortly. I think in May for the 250th, you're going to be using him again through the midterms. So he'll be back there. Trump also spent time yesterday. So just watch how all this attention, right, the change in the financial system, Trump running the narrative supply chain. We have the audits. We have this auditing that I said will be going on for the next few months. Here's Trump just absolutely hammering Newsom yesterday and what's going on in California. Nick Shirley, of course, got the ball rolling in California, and we're seeing more and more that the California model is not going to be one that will lead to any type of victory for the Democrats going forward. Trump attacking him here in a really funny way.
I don't care about the Democrats. The Democrats hate our country. The Democrats are in chaos right now, and they have no common sense. You know, they have one quality that's amazing. They stick together. And it's harder because they stick together in a ridiculous policy like men playing in women's sports, open borders for everybody, including murderers and anybody else that want it. We're open to you. Come in, murderers. You know why they do that? They do that for a couple of reasons, but they do it for votes because they think they're going to vote for the Democrats, even though I did great with the Hispanic vote, tremendous with the Hispanic vote. You know, I turned that whole thing around. The Hispanics like me, and I like them. And, you know, it's interesting with the Hispanics. When I built the wall, everybody said, oh, that's going to ruin us for the Hispanic. It was just the opposite. They know all about immigration, and they know all about death and crime, and they're smart people, and they have common sense. They wanted to be protected from the people that were coming into our country. So, you know, I won the election with a very tremendous Hispanic vote, and I think it's higher now than it was then. So we're a party of common sense. The Democrats are a party of insanity. They're a party that will destroy our country. If I didn't win this election, I believe our country would have been destroyed by now. 1 year, that's all it would have taken. If you had Kamala or Sleepy Joe, either one, it wouldn't have mattered. They're the same thing. Two sleepy people, two stupid people. I believe, and by the way, Gavin Newsom, who is one of the candidates, I believe he took himself out of the running when he says he suffers from mental disability. And a reporter said it was terrible that I talked that way about somebody with mental disability. I said, I have no problem with it, but I don't want a person with mental disability to be my president. I mean, you don't want to have a person with mental disability being your president. And Gavin Newsom said that he can't read a speech. He can't do almost anything. And then he said he's as dumb as all the people in the room. And he got accused of being a racist, which was an amazing thing. I thought it was the worst interview I've ever seen anybody give. He's actually a very stupid person. So I believe he's out of the running. I think that statement, that interview, he admitted that he's a stupid person. I don't want a stupid person being president. You know, I'll say it right now. I say it because no press never reports it. I'm the only president that ever took a cognitive test. I took it 3 times. It's actually a very hard test for a lot of people. It wasn't hard for me. It's a cognitive test. It starts off with an easy question. And by the time you get to the middle, it gets tougher. By the time you get to the...
His cognitive test again. He loves talking about his cognitive test. The highest scores ever. He's a stupid person. But it's true. Nobody, like, I got, it's fine. Like, people can have disabilities, but you don't want them to be your president. So, and on the same day, they got no electricity. They have a big blackout in California, massive blackout in Orange County, no power across the region as energy grids and everything become more and more important. Indeed, California just not. The highest gas prices, everything. O'Keefe involved. It's not just what we see from Nick Shirley. We've seen this investigation for the past 2 weeks. Really hilarious stuff here. They're showing how people do the vote scamming, just as Trump said, vote rigging. So I told you it's going to be months of this stuff. It's auditing, it's declassifications, it's revelations, it's all that kind of stuff. And that's why all of this policy about energy is just so stupid. Here, the Democrats blocking construction of new AI data centers until there's rules about AI. This is a very big losing strategy and not going to persuade anyone. And then he gets even just more classic stuff here. Here he starts talking about his pens to talk about how terrible Democrats are. So just watch the skill here, laughing about pens, right? Better than any comedian, but he's making a very astute political point here. And watch how he goes from the audits and Newsom being stupid, takes Newsom's stupidity, ties it to Joe Biden, then ties Joe Biden to the, of course, auto pen. So he does the auto pen everything and then brings it back to Democrat wastefulness and his own pens, which are way cheaper. Just look at how persuasive this is and watch how many storylines he's able to collapse into one entertaining narrative. And realize this is Picasso, guys. There's never been anything like this in terms of persuasion. Nothing like this has ever been seen in politics. This is a completely different level. Nothing like this exists. And it's hilarious.
See this pen right here? This pen is an interesting example. It's the same thing. So this pen is very inexpensive, but it writes well. I like it. But I can't have the pen the way it was. You know what it is. I don't want to give too much publicity, but they do treat me well, Sharpie. So I came here, they have $1,000 pens. And you hand pens out, you're signing and you hand them out. You're handing them to all these people. Sometimes you have 30, 40 people. And they were $1,000 a piece. Beautiful pen, ballpoint. 1,000. It was gold, silver, gorgeous. But I'm handing out to kids that don't even know what they're doing. What is this, Mommy? It's kids. They're getting a pen for $1,000. They have no idea what it is.
That's credit.
And I feel guilty because I'm like, I'm by nature, I don't, it's the government. I love the government like I love myself economically. I want to save money. So I'm saying, this is crazy. And it had another problem. They didn't write well. So I take it out and I saw it and there's no ink. And I got all you people looking, and you say, there must be something wrong with Trump. And I'm signing, and there's no ink in the pen, and it costs $1,000. This one, I called the guy. I said, I'd like to use your pen, but I can't have a gray thing with a big S on it, saying Sharpie. As I'm signing $1 trillion airplane contract to buy brand new fighter jets, brand new B-2 bombers, of which we just ordered plenty. I can't do that with the press. Use your pen, but I like the pen the best. But I'll sign it. I could do like Biden did, you know, give it to somebody else to sign, or an auto pen, or maybe sign it separately in another room. But I can't use your pen. He said, well, I can make it nicer. I said, what can you do? He said, I'll paint it black. I said, that's nice. And I can even paint the White House on it, sir, if you like, in gold. Almost real gold.
Almost real gold.
And I can even do your signature, sir. And by the way, this was not staged. I just saw the pen sit there, and I thought of this as an example.
Almost real gold. Almost. Too good. So, again, Trump Theater, you're watching a master of persuasion, the ultimate level. And this is how I came to my next prediction, which I told you for the whole beginning of this war. I told you this was going to be what happened, that the minute this thing wrapped up, because everyone was saying, oh, Trump's doing the Iranian war because he's mentioned in the Epstein files. He's doing it to distract the Epstein files. And I said, not exactly. The minute Democrats find out that they can't get Trump, there's no more interest in the Epstein files. They show no interest in it when Trump isn't the target. So the minute the Iranian war started, about 2 weeks later, we saw a new Epstein-Trump statue. I don't know who put it there, but it made me believe that we would be heading right back to Epstein and Trump, because you're starting to see the narrative supply chain kick in again. And that's how you make the prediction. I don't know what Trump is thinking. I'm not just guessing either, but my bet is he's going to continue to use the narrative supply chain to make people think that Trump is the target. Remember the kayfabe story that I've been telling you for a long time. One of Trump's great abilities in the kayfabe thing is he can go back and forth between heel and babyface. Remember his fight with Elon Musk? It's kind of like the Marvel movie Civil War. You know, the Civil War, the third movie in the Captain America series. If you haven't seen it, the villain of that movie is actually Iron Man. Iron Man is the villain. Iron Man, who becomes the hero of the Avengers Endgame movie, that is the sequel really to Civil War. That movie, he becomes the hero again. And of course, Iron Man is normally a hero. But Iron Man becomes the villain in that story. He becomes the state apparatchik. He becomes the guy doing the compromises on behalf of the deep state and all that stuff. And the principled actor, the babyface, being Captain America. So he actually takes a heel turn in that movie, in the Civil War movie. And it just shows you, first of all, how great Robert Downey Jr. is, that he can subtly play a villain in a movie and you'll forget about it right away in the next movie when he's the hero again. But it also tells you a lot about the human brain and just how flexible it is and how we respond to these archetypes pretty instantly. Heel turns and the kayfabe part of wrestling have proven that over time, that we'll accept the heel turns of Hulk Hogan and all of these wrestlers pretty willingly, because we want to suspend our disbelief and get into the story and get vested in the story and cheer on outcomes and all that stuff, which is why I made the prediction that Epstein files, right when the war in Iran started to wrap up, it's been 4 weeks, like we heard from Trump. I said in 4 weeks, you're going to see them pivot right back to, not only did I say Epstein, we're going to get Epstein back, we were going to get back to the tranche that were held back on 9/11. And did I get lucky? Is this luck? Is it luck that we're right back to where I said we would be? We have all this stuff from Catherine Herridge yesterday, going back on the Steve Bannon stuff. You'll see she gets right into 9/11 as well. Epstein apparently boasting to Steve Bannon about entering a skiff is a major security concern, says intelligence expert. Of course it is. Then we see here, why was Jeffrey Epstein leading an effort to knife the 9/11 families in the back? President 9/11 Justice, in response to our new investigation, there are people alive today who know these answers and who are part of that conspiracy, and these people ought to have the answer to these questions under oath. The American public, especially this nation's most grieved group of victims, is owed an explanation. And it's becoming clear that there is no hope for this administration to do the right thing. It is now up to Congress to be our savior, the same way it was 10 years ago when it passed the legislation which Epstein apparently sought to kill. Let's hope Congress has the courage and blah, 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 blah. But again, you're going to see this stuff move forward. You're going to see this storyline resuscitated. You're going to see all throughout the summer. That's what you have to look forward to is 9/11, more declassification, more JFK stuff is coming out as well. And you're going to get all of these stories. You're going to get to the bottom, to the extent possible, of 9/11. I'm sure we're still not going to have the whole story, but watching the narrative supply chain start to kick into gear here by tying Epstein to 9/11 and starting with this investigation into what's going on. Catherine Herridge has been a point person in a lot of this declassification stuff for a while now. One of the last journalists in America, one of the last people that can actually do this stuff, and very fascinating indeed. And that's why even now we can predict that we are headed to this season of accountability. It is coming. It is going to be a part of your summer vacation, a part of your leisure summer reading. It's going to be fraud, 9/11 stuff, golden age good news, and season of accountability is what I predict is in the pipe. And indeed, what we see here from the grand conspiracy subpoena, of course, James Comey. Now, we've already seen how the 9/11 thing is related to the Comey Russia thing through Mueller, who died this week, right? So Mueller dies this week, and now we're starting to see the connections and the whole thing come out. And here you got Roger Stone, who's going to bring it all back to our favorite story, JFK. So you can see all of this stuff coming into view. Roger Stone wrote this yesterday. Comey grand conspiracy subpoena is not isolated. It's part of a sprawling investigation that has already issued more than 130 subpoenas in the last months. There are chapters in American history that demand to be written not in ink, but in fire. The Obama administration, cloaked in the sanctimony of intellectualism and the false patina of moral superiority, unleashed a corrosive strain of political malice that did not dissipate with the passage of time. It metastasized, it deepened through the first Trump administration, calcified under the Biden presidency, and even now its vestiges linger like a stubborn contagion within the body politic. This was not governance. This was something far more insidious, a slow-moving institutional rot, and now, at long last, the day of accountability may be coming. On March 19th, 2026, in a development that has sent tremors through the upper echelons of the intelligence and law enforcement establishment, former FBI Director James Comey received a federal grand jury subpoena from prosecutors in the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida. The timing, reported since March 3rd, 2026, is no accident, nor is the venue incidental. This subpoena seeks documents related to Comey's role in the drafting and assembling of the January 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment, the now infamous report that asserted a Russia collusion hoax in 2016 election to benefit Donald Trump. Not testimony, not yet, documents, paper trails, the quiet architecture of decisions made behind closed doors. This is not an isolated inquiry. It's part of a sprawling investigation that has already issued more than 130 subpoenas since 2025. As a nation, we must all pause and ask the question that cuts to the marrow. What exactly are prosecutors looking at that requires such breadth and persistence? The answer is unsettling as it is unavoidable. They are attempting to reconstruct a mosaic of conduct that may reveal not mere error, but design in the form of improperly modified political prosecutions waged against those associated with President Trump. Was there a sedition conspiracy that began in 2016 and continued through 2024? Among those already ensnared in the widening net is former CIA Director John Brennan. Brennan received his own subpoena months earlier, reported in late 2025, focusing on his supervisory role in the same intelligence community assessment. Brennan was not a peripheral figure. He was central. He oversaw the process. He influenced its contours. And according to subsequent CIA Tradecraft Review Commission CIA Director John Ratcliffe, the process was nothing but orthodox. He described the ICA's construction as chaotic and unconventional. Those are not casual descriptors. In the lexicon of intelligence, they are damning. Even more troubling are allegations that Brennan advocated for the inclusion of a summary of the now discredited Steele dossier and annex to the report despite internal objections. Why include material that had been verified? Why attach it to an assessment presented as authoritative? Was it prudence or was it something more calculated? As has been said before by British historian Lord Acton, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. CIA Director John Ratcliffe has referred both Brennan and Comey to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution. Among the possible avenues under scrutiny are false statements to Congress and perjury. Brennan, for his part, has denied wrongdoing and protested the process. His attorneys have alleged irregularities, including what they characterize as judge shopping and selective leaks. In other words, Brennan's lawyers claim the current administration is engaging in precisely the tactics that Brennan himself used. The list of individuals touched by this investigation reads like a roll call of Obama-era intelligence apparatus: Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, James McGonigal, James Clapper, Charles McGonigal, James Clapper. More than 130 subpoenas have reached current and former officials across multiple agencies. This is not some mere sort of pinprick inquiry. It's a kind of long overdue and very broadly needed systematic excavation. At the center of this effort lies a singular objective, which is to re-examine the origins and executions of the 2016 to 2017 counterintelligence activities directed at Donald Trump and his campaign. This includes the genesis of Crossfire Hurricane, the composition of the ICA, and the downstream actions that shaped years of investigations, political persecution, corruption, cover-ups, criminal conspiracy, and media narratives. Prosecutors appear to be exploring whether disparate acts can be woven into a prosecutable conspiracy, not a political slogan, a legal theory. Critics have long derided these events as a hoax. Others have defended them as necessary national security measures, but slogans are not evidence, and indignation is not exculpation. The grand jury process exists precisely to pierce through competing narratives and arrive at facts. The venue itself is as telling as it is promising. The grand jury is impaneled in the United States District Court of Southern District of Florida, under the supervision of U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon. Proceedings are centered in Fort Pierce, Florida, within a courthouse whose jurisdiction has already intersected with high-profile matters involving the president. The U.S. attorney overseeing this effort, James A. Redding Quinones, operates in coordination with the Department of Justice leadership in Washington. This is not a peripheral jurisdiction, it's a deliberate locus. In fact, I suggested in October 2025 the proper venue is SDFL. Beyond the legal architecture and procedural mechanics, there lies a human dimension that cannot be ignored. The weaponization of government is not an abstraction. It is lived experience for many Americans living in constant fear, awaiting the other proverbial shoe to drop. It is the knock at the door that never comes, yet is always anticipated. It is the reputational erosion that unfolds in real time. It is the financial devastation wrought by endless entanglements. It is the public humiliation and falsehood sweeping across social media. So indeed, it's a big, big story, and it appears that the subpoenas issued to Comey and Brennan and the 130 or so others are not the conclusion to the story. They're the beginning of what may prove to be one of the most consequential inquiries of our time. Whether it culminates in indictments, convictions, exonerations, prison sentences, or anything that resembles semblance of justice remains to be seen. But it is the process itself that matters, because a nation that refuses to examine its own misconduct is a nation that invites its own decline. So that's what I see going on, guys. And indeed, the whole thing is happening. I think it is. It looks like we are at that moment. It looks like all of these coded messages coming from the White House. We'll find out what the message is today. But even if it is just some fun, which I don't think it is, we're going to see a severe pivot in conversation. It's all headed back to declassification. It's all headed back to Comey, Russia, which leads straight back to through Epstein and through the 9/11 inquiries. Inevitably, we'll get back to the JFK stories, but indeed, this is what you have in store for. So that's what's going on. Demand of these new notes is going to be huge. T-bills, now Trump bills. Exactly, guys. Exactly. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. Lots of chat stuff, I bet. All right, where are we? How's the visit been? It's almost over, Chef Zero. We're almost done. A few more days. It's been great. The weather was absolutely perfect this year, better than ever. Never really even hit the high 80s. We were mid 80s all winter. Escape the Matrix. All the doomers in the truth community need to start watching this show. Tell them, Escape the Matrix. Tell them it's happening. No need for doomerism. No need. You don't want to be overly optimistic, but I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. And I'm making predictions based on what I see from messaging, financial incentives. It looks like we're headed to a complete rejigging of the American system, of the international order, and all of it based on weirdly kayfabe and all those fun things. Again, I'll share my meme that I made. I didn't share it on the internet yet, but let me see where it is. Let me see if I can find it again, the one I made yesterday. There it is. Oh, I'm hearing a kite. Doesn't seem like there's enough wind to be a kite, but I hear one. Indeed, Satoshi invents Bitcoin during 2008 financial crisis. Wall Street and energy grids love it as best performing assets and grid stabilizer for over 15 years. A wrestling Hall of Famer becomes president on a Bitcoin ticket. The US president uses kayfabe to destroy fiat bank cabal with energy grid-backed economic system. We've got the energy grid-backed system happening. We've got the kayfabe being used against Epstein, Rothschild banker. All that stuff is happening. I don't know what to say. The whole war in Iran looks like it's getting rid of our lecherous, parasitical ally that's been subverting us all of these years in Europe and the UK. And indeed, it looks like we're having a complete and total reordering of America, of the American system. And Bitcoin looks to be at the middle of this, the way we all anticipated, the way Pierre Rochard just mentioned. And the way we see Trump taking control of Treasury and the recalibration of the Republic into something different. But the old thing failed. So that's a normal change. And remember, in the Roman case, the best times were the empire. I think we are going to see a wholesale abandonment of the idea that democracy was some kind of enlightened state. I think the closest thing we get to democracy from now on is Rhodesian style. I think it's going back to you're a landowner, you contribute, you can vote. But voting and enfranchisement will come with who voluntarily wants to give to the state. I don't even think it has to be landowning. I think there could be just a nominal amount of giving to the government in order to get a vote. And then people who don't give don't get. And corporations probably going to be kicked out of voting as well. Moral people, of course, kicked out of contributions. I think this will take the famous that you can make unlimited campaign donations from a corporation. What was it? United Health Workers or whatever it was from years ago. So that's what I think is happening, guys. That's what I think. So there you go. Boomer doomers get mad when you call them boomers. Then they doom a little more. It's the weave strategy employed by Trump, indeed. What does the kite sound like? Like a wind in the string, like a guitar? It sounds exactly like a weed whacker or like a lawn getting mowed, because there's these little noise makers in it that just flap in the wind and create this sound. Am I going to be in Vegas? I will be. Escape the Matrix. I will be. I indeed will be. Did you swim in the ocean? Oh my God, every day. I was there last night. Now I've become, they're called Bajans, right? The people from here. I'm definitely a Bajan in that I complain about the cold all the time now. And I'll go in and it'll be like 70s in the water and I'll be like, oh, I got to get out. I made a joke a couple years ago after having lived in Barbados for a few winters. I went up to Turks and Caicos for a visit, and it was really cool. It was when you get the kind of iguanas falling out of the trees in Florida. And it was still not that bad in Turks and Caicos. It was probably high 70s, but at night it was sort of high 60s. And I was freaking out. I was like, I'm never coming north again. I can't travel north like this. I have to stay in the south. And that was in Turks and Caicos. So to a Canadian, this is funny stuff. This is a very Canadian joke. We find that when you can say going north to Turks and Caicos is just, hits our funny bone, I think. So having a great time here this year. Absolutely amazing. Oh, I just got a note. 1 second. I will be right with you for the last comments. Just saw that. Okay. Okay, all the doomers in the truth community need to start. Well, yeah, there we go. Well, the good thing about Bitcoin Pen, they possess infinite ink. 21 million, indeed. Looks like Bitcoin is down 3 pens this morning. We don't have to worry about down. What are we down? 3%? Yeah, 68,000. Swap a 1,000 US trash token pen for a custom USA Sharpie, which has a cost fraction of the amount, is great for the USA, preventing waste, indeed. I like the pen, best pen ever. It's a great pen. I use these too. Per capita tax, pay it and you get a vote. Don't pay it and you are registered for an annual draft for public service. Well, I don't want that kind of power being in the hands of the state, but I get what you mean. Not a bad idea. The problem is giving power to the state. It's in the wording, right? You never want to give them. Look what happened with the euthanasia. I've never been against euthanasia, right? So I think it's your right. I do. I think it's your right. Now, what I wanted was the old way we did euthanasia, which was we always did it. If you were sick, they talk with your family, you, the doctor, everyone does it very quietly, very discreet. My problem when they brought it into Canada was very simple. The minute you institutionalize it and you create the incentives, it's going to lead to a market for euthanasia. And that's what happened to that lady in Spain. She got pressured into it because her organs were already accounted for. They already had sold their organs. They basically made her do it. So the minute you plug it into economic systems because of the legal predictability of the regime, you do what we have in Canada. It's just a good business model. And that's why they push it so much in Canada now, because they wrote it down on paper. So the difficulty that I had from day one with euthanasia, because it actually came up during the Harper government. So I argued and pushed against it from day one, not because I am against euthanasia. I am not. I think you should be able to find a way to do that in a secure manner, in a way that doesn't put your life in your that can't fail, so that you have to live with broken legs or whatever that happened in Spain. You should be able to go and access it, and it should be discreet. And it should be something that isn't written down, because the minute you write it down, you create the business model, and then the business model takes over, not the right and wrong, not the morality. The incentives take over. And so that was always my problem with it. And that's why I was against the legal way of doing it, and that I preferred the off the books, everyone's fine with it, no one's going to prosecute, and that was it. Basically, I would be for removing the criminality around people who are who have consented to it, who write it down, and then you just remove the criminal thing, but you don't actually enforce a regime for euthanasia, which gives the bright ideas to the business model. So what you're saying here about the voting thing, if you create a model to give the state power to compel people to do public service, it isn't going to work that way over time. It might be great for like a year, and then it's terrible, right? Maybe you even do it differently. You offer young people a lifetime of voting if they dedicate a year to public service when they're young. There's probably better ways to create that. We do need more public service. Although you see what they got going on in El Salvador now with the chain gangs. We want the chain gangs back, by the way. We love the chain gangs. Bukele's got the chain gangs now. Does he get everything right? Is it just everything they do in El Salvador now is the best? Chain gangs have been one of our great lost labor forces. You should use chain gangs all the time. They're the best. Chain gangs. You take your criminals and they mow the lawns. Every time I drive on the highway and I see that huge median in the middle with all the high grass, and I see all these expensive contractors that the state has to hire to cut the grass between the median, between the highways, all kinds of big machinery, all kinds of, what is this costing us per year? Millions of dollars, I'm sure, maybe billions across the entire country. It's a lot of money. And I would rather just they would love it, the criminals, not the super violent ones, but you get all the white collar guys, put them on the chain gang, get them out there with a weed whacker and some lawnmowers. You don't got to buy the expensive stuff. You're not in a rush. Tell them mow lawns. They got them down in the beaches now in El Salvador cleaning up the garbage. You know how jealous I am of that? Now, I got a clean country here. We don't need to use chain gangs. They clean it. It's a very clean Caribbean island that I live on here compared to most. But what they're doing over in El Salvador with the chain gangs, very jealous, very jealous. So we need public service. Either we do the chain gangs or, voting, something like that, some due incentive model. Estonia is going to get a hard thumping from Russia. That likely how Russia military will respond to attack drones being launched from yesterday. I think Putin is going to have a lot of patience. Putin knows what's up with Kirill Dmitriev and the Sovereign Fund there yesterday. I think it's just a matter of time. All right, looks like I'm running out of time, folks. I'll let you know later if the Canada show is happening. Walking on the chain gang. All right, everyone. You all have a great weekend. If I don't see you, I have not been in touch with my co-host, so I do not know yet if we're having a show. I will get back to you on the internet about that. I'll find out after the show. If I am there, see you there. If I'm not, see you Monday. Peace, everyone. Thanks for coming. You're going to see the logo followed by the ad. Let me just tell my producer I'm about to cut, and then I will see you later, everyone. Peace out.